So we've been brought up from either our parents, teachers, or coaches to always learn from our mistakes. In fact, I think it's almost in our nature to do so now. Whether it's, perhaps not doing so well on a particular test, and you think to yourself, what can I learn from this, and how can I do better so I can get an 8 on the next test? Or perhaps it's losing a game in whatever sport you play, or activity that you do, and you think to yourself, man, this sucks, but how can I kick butt next time and win the next game? But I think there are also 3 other fundamental ideas of rejections and failures that are just as important as learning from them. And they are being able to let go of the ones that you can't control, being able to embrace them, and being able to reroute. And today I'll share with you 3 personal stories of mine of each of those different experiences. And I'll start off with being able to let go of those rejections and failures you can't control. So ever since I was little, as long as I could remember, my dream school to go to was to go to Stanford University. And I don't know why. I think there's like a particular, perhaps it was when I was younger. I did gymnastics when I was younger, and I competed on the campus a couple times. So I think it was probably, just being there. It was my first campus I've ever been on. It was like the first school I really knew. And it was beautiful, and just growing up, it was like my dream school. So senior year, when I was rejected from Stanford, it was hard on me. I thought to myself, did I do something wrong? What else could I have done differently? And that bothered me. That actually carried on and hung on to me for quite a bit of time, even after I graduated from high school. Yes. And it was silly because I was at Berkeley, and I absolutely loved Berkeley. It was a perfect fit for me, and it is a perfect fit for me. It has the programs I want to study in. It has amazing people. The classes there, the culture, the environment, everything about it is just perfect for me, and I love it so much. But there is still a part of me that still hung on to that rejection, and I couldn't ever really get over it until even when deadlines were approaching, I started thinking to myself, I could still apply to transfer to Stanford. I could still apply. I was willing to retake the essays. Redo the essays. I was willing to retake the SATs, which now thinking back at it now, it's crazy. Willing to get letter of recommendations. And as the deadline approached, I never got a wake-up call until I finally started talking to friends who were at Stanford. I started talking to my family members. And I finally had this wake-up call. And every one of them they all asked me this question, which I wasn't able to answer. They asked me, why do you want to transfer? Why do you want to apply? Stanford's a great school, but where you are right now, you love it so much. Why do you want to apply and transfer to a different school? And I couldn't answer that question. So I finally, here I was, spending all this time and effort on something that was in the past, something that just wasn't right for me, something that was a waste of time. Instead, I should have been focusing on the now, And I found to realize that a lot of these rejections and failures that we experience through our life, we can do our best to learn from the mistakes, but a lot of them we can't control. We can't control. So we need to learn how to let go from it and focus on the now. Focus on the things you love. Focus on the things you're passionate about. And focus on the things that you can control, because that is what's important. The second lesson is about being able to embrace and to love rejections and failures and to be happy about it. Yes, be happy about rejections and failures, okay? And you might think that sounds crazy, but if you're in a state of place where you're surrounded by rejections and failures, that means you're challenging yourself. I mean, you can have someone that lives a day-to-day life, okay? And they decide not to apply for a better job. They decide not to apply for a new job. Or perhaps a student decides not to apply to certain scholarships or certain colleges. Sure, you'll have a 0% failure rate. Way to go, you. 0% failure rate. But at the same time, you'll have a 0% success rate. And that's sad because who's keeping score anyway, right? So I started teaching as a freshman in college, and I absolutely fell in love with it. It was a student-run course, and I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And so I decided I wanted to take it to the next level. I wanted to take it to the next level, and I realized that there were positions for graduate students. These positions were called GSIs, Graduate Student Instructors. And these positions were meant for graduate students. These are PhDs. These are law students, MBA students.
So I was an undergrad, and I was like, I really think I have what it takes to be a GSI, even though I'm an undergrad. So I went online, I went to the Haas School of Business website, and I took a look at the professors there, and I took a look at what classes they were teaching, and which ones they're teaching, and how I could relate to them. And I wasn't stalking, okay? I was just, just doing research, okay? Doing research to see which professors. So I reached out to every single one of them I thought, that interested me. And one by one, either through email, either on the phone or meeting in person, one by one, it was rejection, 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 all for the same reason. It was because I was an undergraduate student. But a few months later, I kept trying, and finally, I had this one professor who reached out to me and says, Kylan, let's meet one-on-one and face-to-face. And so we spoke. And I wanted to make sure that it was clear that I was an undergrad, because believe it or not, I actually met with a different professor who went with me face-to-face. And after he heard I was an undergrad, he was like, no, actually, we'll go a different route. But this professor, she was like, oh yeah, I know you're an undergraduate. She saw the passion I have for teaching. She saw my enthusiasm. She saw my experience. And she hired me. She hired me to be a GSI. But the thing was that even after that, she still had to write a letter-long petition to this administration because I was still an undergrad. I still had to write a petition to get through. But finally, that all passed. And last year, I taught for my first semester as a GSI. And that semester, I earned my first teaching award. And when I got the award, it was like it opened my eyes a lot, because I thought, if I didn't try to push myself to the next level, I wouldn't have ever gotten that teaching award. If I didn't try to push myself to the next level, I wouldn't have gotten a better experience and a greater experience from teaching. If I didn't push myself to the next level, most importantly, I wouldn't have gotten a better love and passion for teaching and a whole new different level. And that's what was important. So if you are not having any failures or rejections around your life, that either means two things. One, you are invincible and you are not a human being. Or two, you're not challenging yourself enough. Right? Don't be afraid to set higher goals for yourself, even those that might seem too far out of reach. Because all those rejections and failures that come along the way, all it is, it's a sign. It means that you are at the right place. It means that you are at a great place. And my final story has to do with rerouting. And so, as early as I could remember, I was seriously a crazy kid. I was a nut. I would run around the house for no apparent reason, just run around the house. I'd go to my grandmother's house in Sacramento, and I would run around the house for no apparent reason, just because I was crazy. And I still remember, to this day, those coffee tables. I'd jump up on top of it, and it was made out of glass, by the way. And I still remember when I was younger, I'd sing Ring Around the Rosie, and I'd be jumping on it, and the whole thing just crashed and cracked. And I fell through, and the glass shattered, and my feet were all cut up. The ambulance came. My grandmother was worried. My grandmother was pissed. But my parents saw kind of the excitement I had as a kid, and they decided to enroll me to my first gymnastics class. And ever since then, when I was 5 years old, I started competing nationally, and that became my life. Gymnastics was my life. And when people asked me when I was younger what I wanted to be, it wasn't I wanted to be a doctor. It wasn't I wanted to be an engineer, not an astronaut. It was to be an Olympic gymnast. And seriously, my routine would be wake up in the morning, go to school, go to practice. Sometimes practice would be so late where my parents picked me up, would have to bring me dinner from leftovers, because by the time I got home, everyone would have finished dinner, and all I had time left was to do homework. And the next morning, same thing. I'd wake up earlier to finish any homework I didn't finish, go to school, same routine over and over again. When we go to snowboarding trips, I'd have to be the one who had to sit out because I couldn't risk injuring myself before competitions. But all those sacrifices were worth it. And I envied those kids who could play after school. So if you guys were the ones playing on the playgrounds after school, I envied you so much. But all those sacrifices were worth it because I wanted to become an Olympic gymnast, and I wanted to do everything it took to get there. But after Junior Olympics, after I competed Junior Olympics, I was forced to quit because I chipped a bone in my elbow, and I needed surgery to remove the bone. And ever since then, my elbow was never the same to handle the kind of extreme environment in gymnastics. So I was forced to leave away from the sport. And that is my greatest failure, To this day, that is still my greatest failure, having to walk away from gymnastics. But the thing is that I was able to reroute. And what I've learned is that throughout your lifetime, sometimes rejections and failures, the only option you have is to reroute, is to go to another path, right? So walk away from the original path, go to a new path, work your butt off, work hard, keep the same determination and drive that you had for the original path into the new one. You may not know where the new path lies, but it will pay off. And it did for me. Last summer, I finally had my dream of going to Olympics come true. I didn't go as an athlete, but I went as an Olympic torchbearer. And that, for me, it kind of just made like a full circle around. And I couldn't have done that if I did not reroute and establish new goals for myself. And I worked hard, just like I did in the gym. So, by being able to, be able to let go of those rejections or failures you don't have control of, being able to embrace it, being able to be happy about it, and being able to reroute, if you're able to do that, sometimes our greatest failure will become our greatest success. Thank you.